Hello and welcome to another edition of, taking a look at Panzer 2. And again, I'm joined by Lieutenant Joker.
Hello.
And we are taking a look at the demo that has been out for a pretty long time, but there's never enough time to, review and take a look at everything. Let's switch to the video, and the plan for today is just look at the video and then discuss what we're seeing. And if some people are in the chat, feel free to join the discussion. And let's get going. Any words from you, Lieutenant Joker, to start it off? Are you still there?
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay. Perfect.
I have seen it before also, and there are a few interesting things, a few things that I'm not sure about. So I guess we'll go just through them one by one and talk about it.
Yep. I will start the game or the video.
Right, so probably many people watching this stream are already familiar with Panzer series, or maybe with some other games in the same genre. But for people who are completely new, I'm going to do this small demo, where I will actually show the basics of the game from the very beginning. But I think that for people who did play Panzer Core, it will still be interesting, because they will instantly see some new features, some changes in gameplay, which we did. So let's get started. But first of all, what kind of a game is Panzer Core? Panzer Core is a war game, right? And it means that its primary focus is war. In this case, obviously, Second World War. And most of the time you're going to use your army, your units. Like here we have 2 infantry units and 2 tanks. So we are going to use our army to defeat the enemy. We will not be building bases, collecting lots of different resources, conducting research, diplomacy, whatever. We will be just fighting. So second important point is that Panzer Core is turn-based. And this means that you can really take your time thinking about the mission, doing some planning, making some decisions. And there is no rush, there is no real time. And you don't need to click really fast in order to win this game. And final point which I wanted to make before we start is that Panzer Core is really easy to play. And hopefully in this demo you will see just that. So let's look at the map here. We are supposed to defeat enemy army, and why don't we just start from this very first enemy unit here? It's a little recon unit, and I'm just going to attack it with my tanks. So I select my tank, I give it a move order, and I click enemy unit to attack it. And I did not quite finish this unit, so I will bring in my other tank and attack as well. And this attack was really easy for my unit. It's called overrun attack, so it basically comes for free, and I can continue moving after it. And
Okay, can you pause?
basically,
Well, there were first 2 things that I noticed right away. First of all, we talked about that earlier. While the tanks and the terrain looks decent, the infantry unit at the bottom of the screen, it took me a while to even see that was even there. Those guys standing in a little bit more complex terrain, they're almost invisible. What I also noticed is that the damage numbers while they were fighting were almost invisible to me. First of all, they're way too small, and they had the explosion in the background. So I'm not sure about you, but I almost didn't see how much damage was done.
Yeah, I think you get used to it. The first time I saw the video, did see nothing as well. I only noticed some numbers flashing up, but that's all. But now I've seen it for the third time. I'm starting to get used to it. So yeah, I could read them because I was expecting them to be there.
Yeah, I think they should be a little bit
But
bigger.
yeah, they should be a little bit bigger, but I'm not sure if that's really a huge problem.
No,
Seeing it the
no,
first
no.
time, I thought, wow, that's way too small. But I'm a little bit more confident now. But you're right. It's about the units on the map. Sometimes it seems they're difficult to see, and depending on from what angle you're looking at the tank, for example, or at the unit, it's difficult to immediately see what's what and what type of tank that is. But yeah, I think we will get used to that. At least I hope.
Yeah, and it's still in beta stage, so I think stuff like increasing yeah, some people have been asking in the comments of this video already that so of the demo video, not on our video, that they wanted more soldiers for as representing the infantry, so you see them better, and that they also don't look so out of place for the tanks. And Richard Martin also commented that the animation doesn't really look fully aggressive. They do a casual jog or just stand around. They don't really look like they're in the middle of combat.
Yeah, they're looking like some guys going for a walk.
Yeah, like guys going a walk or standing guard or stuff like that. They don't really look like they're in the middle of an engagement. So I think those animations could be a little bit fixed, and maybe some more, like 5 or 6 soldiers, maybe even 10. I'm sure that will go down on performance, but honestly, modern PCs shouldn't have an issue with that nowadays. So those are minor fixes. The one other thing that I noticed is how far these tanks can move.
Yeah, that's extreme. I think this had I counted it. It's like a movement range of 7, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty far.
Yeah, and especially if you count in overrun, you could go across the whole map here, I think, in one go with one tank. Because
Yeah,
he gets his movement back, so you move 7, then another 7, and then
No, I don't think that's how it works. I think you have the movement points that you have left. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
I don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure from what I saw in this video, it's
Okay,
like
okay.
you have the movement points that you still have left. So it's basically like a recon move.
He was talking about getting his turn back or something like that. But yeah, if it's working that way, that's fine. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, in the turn, in the sense that it can still move and engage, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't reload the movement points. That would be a little too much. Yeah, especially considering how much these tanks can already move. It seems they increase the movement speed of the tanks.
Yeah, it looks that way at least. Yeah. I think let's continue. Another thing I think that's pretty apparent, those unit icons are really small, so you can see the number 10, but there is additional info there, and I've no idea what that is supposed to tell me.
I think it's supposed to tell you whether the unit can still move and shoot, but yeah, for me, it's also barely visible at all. I have no idea. For example, right now, I wouldn't be able to tell which unit has already moved.
Yeah, sure.
There should be, I guess that little box on the right should be filled in with some color, but I can't even tell what the color is supposed to be. There's just a bunch of garbage pixels, and I can't tell those apart. So yeah, that needs to be bigger.
Yeah, but I think you can get used to these boxes, and we'll see. I don't think it's too problematic, but there's some stars or rather icons below the 10. I'm not even sure what that should tell me. By the way, hi Ray Castra, hi Ernst, or Ernst. It's always difficult to switch to German. Yeah, let's just continue the video, but I think those are minor issues that if it really turns out to be a problem, can easily be fixed.
Yeah, probably
We
even by
already know
modders.
like 90% of controls we need to play the game, because most of the time you will be moving your units around and attacking enemy units, and that's basically it. So my infantry units here, they cannot move as fast as my tanks, but fortunately they have attached transports, like trucks, and as you can see here, we can move further away if we employ these transports. So I'm going to move this infantry unit and also this one here as well.
Can you pause real quick?
All of my...
Sure.
What I found interesting here is if you look down in the unit info, it seems like entrenchment can only go up to 5 now.
Yeah, you're right. That's fine, I think. It's also a little bit crazy if you have those units entrenched at level 8.
Yeah. It's in that info down there that you always have that when you have a unit selected. I think that's fine. The general UI on the corner of the map, that's fine. Richard Martin wasn't super impressed with the strategic map, but I guess that's still fine as an overview. The colors are a little weird, but I think the general buttons and all that and the unit info, that gives you a better information than the stuff actually next to the unit. That's fine in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm not sure about the strategic overview. Hi, Maxime. And I hope there is another map mode where you really get the strategic overview, because the mini-map I think is fine. But I'm not sure if the tactical overview comes, or the strategic overview is part of this demo. I can't remember. Do you know, actually, Lieutenant Joker?
I think you can actually drag that thing down there because it has a little corner there.
Yeah,
that
sure, but it's I think as a strategic overview, it's not really useful because you can't see the types of units.
Yeah.
It's very hard to see the terrain types, and it would be pretty difficult to do the strategic planning we are used to from our campaign using this map. So
Yeah.
I hope there's a separate view.
Yeah, I think there will probably be, but we'll have to see. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, Pete Mitchell. Yeah, that's a quite spontaneous discussion video about Panzer 2. And by the way, since a lot of people are in the chat now, please comment if the sound levels are not correct. We didn't have time to test this, so maybe Lieutenant Joker is too loud, or the opposite. So if something's not right, please comment. So I will continue with the video.
Units have moved. I cannot do anything else. So now I'm going to pass the turn to my opponent. And it was actually quite painful. Now it's my second turn, and let's talk about what we need to do in this mission. There are many different mission objectives in Panzer Corps, but in this scenario we have the most common and classic mission objectives. We need to capture all victory hexes. And we see that there are 3 victory hexes controlled by the enemy, and all of them are located along the same road. So we are going to move and capture our objectives along the way. And first of our objectives is right here, and it is guarded by this infantry unit. So let us try to attack it. So if I hover enemy unit, I see predicted combat odds, and these odds are really not in my favor. I am going to lose 2 tanks and not inflict any damage in return. And the reason is that it's really not a good idea to attack infantry in close terrain, and city is a close terrain, with your tanks. So instead, I am going to bring in my own infantry and attack the enemy with those. Right? It was not so bad, and now we attack second time. And enemy unit is destroyed.
Here, I actually find it interesting that he
units
doesn't say
here-
anything about mass attack bonus.
Yeah, I hope there will be some way to get this info. And by the way, now I looked a little bit closer, and in this little icon info box that's directly adjacent to the unit, the first one is it still can move, and the second one it still can shoot. So now all 3 are dark, and only the tank can still move, it seems. No,
Yeah, for me
shoot.
that is-
It's the other way around. Sorry. The tank
Yeah, for
can
me that
still
is-
shoot, but the others can't do anything now anymore. But it's very
For me, that is
difficult
too
to
small. For me, that is too small. For my eyes, I need that a little bigger. I can see it, yes, but it's not something I can see at first glance. So this needs to be a little bigger.
see. Yeah,
I
that's,
think if you increase the entire thing, the entire box by like 50% or something like that, that would work.
yeah, it's generally the problem with this sort of 3D game interface. There's a lot of clutter and distraction, a lot of moving parts, and it's a lot harder to get all the information you need to actually plan, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it looks a little bit nicer for most people, I think. So
Yeah, the graphics is actually fine. I still think it's a little too cluttered, but I thought it would get worse. I'm still not sure, because we don't see that in this demo, when we have tanks on hills and mountains, because that always looked a little very off. But we haven't seen that in recent videos. So
yeah, they're
I'm
always on the road.
I'm wondering what that will look like. Maybe they didn't do that in the demo because they know it looks odd. But we'll see. But aside from that, I think it looks okay. I just think a couple of things need to be adjusted and a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and yeah, we'll talk about this a little later. So
I don't have any moves left, but I also have this tank here. And as you can see, it can move pretty fast along the road, so I am going to move into enemy victory hex and capture it.
Yeah, a little very fast for a KV.
yeah, I just stopped again. This is really shocking, I think, the movement range of those things, because the AI most likely is going to do blind counter pushes at full movement range again, and there's no way to scout that. They will bump into you no matter what.
Yeah, that's the thing. We still only see 3 hexes from what it seems,
Yeah.
but they can move like 7 or 8 and shit like that. I'm really not. If these tanks can just come out of nowhere, like the fast tanks, like I don't know, Panthers and T-34s. For the T-34 and the BT tank, I would even say, okay, that could work, but that a KV can move this far, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, that's really scary. So the way
What's
they
going to be about the Tiger and the Tiger 2? Can they move like this also? That I mean, they're moving along the road, but still.
Yeah. We have to test this out, and Maxime, yeah, it's not really, the scale is for certain different maybe, but it doesn't change how the AI is going to play and how you can surprise or ambush people. So the thing is, as a player, you usually can't use this absurd movement range because you have to scout, but the AI doesn't care that much about scouting. It just rushes in, and I'm not sure if the AI is really much smarter than it is in Panzer Corps. We'll have to find out. So, hi Richard Martin, hi Greg, and welcome to the chat. And yeah, let's continue with the video.
So, one victory hex is captured and I have 2 more to go. I'm going to pass the turn to my enemy again. And once again I am attacked by this little Stuka Bomber, and it's really annoying, right? So...
one moment. How does the AI see what to bomb here? That's a big question for me.
Yeah, for me, I also noticed, like, did that Stuka go to the airfield and return in one turn?
No, it goes back in at the end of the turn, and maybe this still provides vision. It looks like that, because otherwise the AI wouldn't be able to see anything.
That's the new mechanic that the planes always return to base at the end of the turn, right?
Yeah, sure, but they still provide vision at the end of the turn, it seems, so you can spot the target, return to base, and then still bomb it. That's a little bit weird, but
that's
fine.
The thing. Like, even if it returns automatically, it doesn't make a difference whether you do that manually or it happens automatically. What the bomber did here was return to base, refuel, rearm, and return and attack again, still having vision, and that all in one turn.
Yeah, that seems a little bit weird.
Yeah, that seems a little overpowered, to be honest. I mean, like before, you at some points you had to interrupt your attack because you were running out of stuff. I mean, of course, this will now mean they might have smaller range because they always have to go back in the same turn. But still, if you're in range, you're in trouble because these things are gonna be swarming you and never go back, never go away. So,
and you can't really ambush them if the vision is still there. So we will have to see that. But that seems weird to me. But maybe it's like Richard Martin is saying, just a pre-programmed battle. But I highly doubt that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But we'll have to see. Yeah.
I'm going to check if its base is protected with any units, and it turns out that it's not. So I'm going to capture it now.
And again, this is a huge issue, I think, with this movement range. The AI will be super easy for the AI to snipe your airfields if you don't protect them, and then all your planes are going to drop out of the sky. So that could be a little bit problematic.
Yeah, that's also something that I noticed too, that the airplane immediately drops out of the sky. I mean, before you still had a chance to get the airfield back. So, I mean, okay, yeah, in terms of if a turn is actually a day or 3 days or something like that, like it is sometimes in Panzer Corps, it kind of doesn't make sense that you have 3 days to take the airfield back because the planes can stay in the air for 3 days. Obviously, that is a little ridiculous, but in terms of gameplay, it's still a little problematic. That if you make one little mistake and one enemy scout unit that can do recon move and has an insane movement speed, especially along roads, can just snipe your airfield, and then if that's the only one in range, potentially your entire Luftwaffe drops out of the sky. If this keeps the way it is, you will have to be extremely good at keeping your line without any holes, so nobody can slip through, and at the same time, I think a human player can do that after getting used to it, but how vulnerable is the AI to this? Because I see a lot of exploits where you send power troopers or sneak around scouts and just take away the enemy airfields. I mean, you don't even have to keep them. You just have to take them for that one turn, and you potentially destroy the entire enemy air force. I'm curious about how this is going to play out. I'm not sure that the AI will be able to defend against this.
Yep, I'm a little bit worried about this too. And yeah, controlling. We will have to find that out playing, I think. I don't think it's a huge problem per se, but there's definitely potential for frustration and exploitation here.
Yeah, it's definitely something like we talked for a second before the video. There are a few mechanics here that advanced players can use to gain a major impact. If you are really good at making this happen, you can potentially destroy dozens of enemy units in one turn. And that's, in my opinion, this only works if there's a decent way of defending against this. If there's more airfields on the map that the Air Force can use alternatively, or if the AI is actually capable of defending against this. If the AI is very vulnerable against this move, then I think we might have a problem. They absolutely need to do something that the AI can defend against this.
Yep, definitely. But it's I like the potential for those things.
Oh yeah, that absolutely, yeah.
But
human versus human, this can be a game winner.
Definitely. And yeah, Richard Martin, the change is good. He says it forces player to be more careful. Yeah, to a certain degree, because sometimes a scout simply slips through, and sometimes there are units hidden somewhere in a forest off to the side, and it's not always possible to scout everything. And if it just rushes out there and snipes an airfield in the back, that can be hugely frustrating, and it's not necessarily something you can defend against all the time. The only thing you can do is always keep a unit on a crucial airfield. But yeah, that feels kind of like a waste, because it's rather pointless sitting there. But yeah, we just have to play with this to learn if this is a problem or not. Just talking about potential problems here.
Yeah, I think if they design the maps well, so you have some auxiliary units that can take care of this, guarding the airfields and stuff like that, then this might work. I just don't. I mean, if you have an auxiliary anti-tank gun or anti-aircraft gun sitting on the airfield, then that should be fine already, because that can switch and then blow up a recon unit or something like that. I just don't want us to have the situation. I mean, in the Grand Campaign and also sometimes in the regular campaign, there were certainly maps where you aren't supposed to take the entire map, but you're supposed to avoid some and go along a certain specified path. And that always had the risk of the typical BT spam that we all know and love, where in your bag some hex that you left away because you're playing Guderian or you're not that good yet, and you just have to ignore certain auxiliary hexes. And if those auxiliary hexes can be used as basis for a BT spam for BTs with this movement range along roads, then yeah, that can potentially be a major problem. I mean, losing a victory hex, that's one thing that can cost you a major victory. But if it costs you your entire core air force, that's a little bit more of a problem, because that's not going to be something that people keep playing. That will cause an instant reload, because nobody's going to keep playing after that, after you lose several planes because an airfield got sniped.
Yeah.
So it is definitely something that needs to be properly balanced, because this can be a potential game destroyer. playing against the AI. I mean, in human versus human, you're not in a campaign. You're gonna be only playing that one scenario. If you lose the Air Force, you lose the Air Force. That's just okay. I lose this match. But if you play it in a campaign, single player, and the AI does something like this, this can cause an instant reload. So that needs to be addressed. That the player has a chance of preventing this. And I hope actually that there is no BT spam anymore.
Yep.
That's gonna go away, because if that still exists, that together with this mechanic can be a major problem.
Yep. But it sounds a little bit negative maybe at the moment, but it's just talking about potential implications of changes and how that should or could change the strategy you have to do. And definitely, if the maps are built accordingly, that can be great. No doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying this is absolutely a negative thing. No, it can be strategically. This is a move. If you manage to do this, you can gain a major advantage, especially in multiplayer. I see this as I said, as a potential game-winning move. So this can be a lot of fun. Just saying, it needs to be balanced with the AI and the campaign, because in a campaign where you play multiple scenarios, you're gonna potentially lose a couple of core units because of one mistake. So that needs to be balanced. If that's properly balanced, this is gonna be fine.
Yeah, so let's continue here.
Right. That's the second victory Hex captured, and as we can see, our infantry can move really fast along the road, but I am going to stay behind my tanks for now.
Yeah, like I said, the movement range is insane, so there's no way you scout units advancing that fast. So, like I said, it's not about being careful all the time. Sometimes there will be a gap in your line, and if you are unlucky, the AI rushes through and takes something. So, yeah, the movement range is really insane.
And then you have to go that far back to catch them again. Yep. What I liked here, I think I noticed that he could already move the next unit while the animation for the first one was still going on. I think that's a nice thing. We will also see that later, that they did something with the replays, but that you can basically, that the animation doesn't block your interaction. That is already something very positive.
And that's all I could do on my turn 3. And now that this aircraft here is left without any base, let's see what happens when I end the turn. Oops. Yeah, things did not go well for that aircraft. And now I have just one final victory hex left, and I am going to attack it with my tanks. But let's see what happened here. I actually ran into a hidden enemy unit, and my tank was ambushed. And also, it was ambushed when standing on a river crossing, which is a very vulnerable position. That's exactly the reason why this little raccoon could actually cause some damage even to my really powerful KV-1 tank. And also here we can see that rivers are very difficult obstacles, because now that the crossing is blocked, I cannot really do anything with my units. So instead, I am going to use this opportunity to rebuild, because all of my units here are a little bit damaged, right? So I'm going to use this replace command here to rebuild them and bring them back to full.
Lieutenant Sugar, one question. Did you notice how much the replacements cost? I can't see this on the UI anywhere.
Yeah, I can't see that either. I don't even see how much prestige we have. No,
that's in the top.
Replacing the units consumes all their actions, so once again, I'm done for this.
It cost like 70. Let me quickly
Turn
go back
5,
a little
and
here.
I am going to finish this little recon here. Once again,
So
it's
he's
overrun, it's
repairing
a
the
free
tank.
attack,
He's at
and I can continue moving
2,400
towards the
prestige.
victory hex. And as we can see,
Oh
this
wow.
victory
Okay,
hex
so he
is
replaced the
guarded a little
tank,
bit more than
and that
previous
only
ones.
cost him
We have
like
infantry
12
sitting
prestige.
inside, and we also have this
Okay, he used regular replacements, but still, that's a little.
That's very cheap, yeah. But
Yeah.
it would be interesting to
So,
see how
once again,
you want to know how much it
attacking
will
this hex
cost
with
you.
my tanks is not a really
I don't
good
want to see it
idea.
after the
I'm
fact,
going to take a lot
but
of
it
damage.
will be.
Yeah. That's also something, yeah.
Will not inflict a lot of damage in return. So I'm going to bring in my guys here. When infantry units are in trucks, they are very, very vulnerable. But here they are screened from any possible attacks by my tanks and also by difficult terrain on the sides. So I should be reasonably safe. And I end turn once again. And as we can see, a unique ability of artillery is to shoot across multiple hexes. So my infantry was slightly damaged, but it's really not that bad. So now I am going to move my tank aside and attack this victory hex. But look at what happens here. This artillery unit has an ability to provide support fire. If I attack, it will fire at me first. So to make it easier for my guys, I am going to go behind the lines with my tank and attack this artillery from behind.
It's interesting how little damage the tank actually does to the artillery. But by the way, I like a lot of things I see here because it's a lot clearer what's happening than in previous games. So you actually get visual representation of the support fire. Something that was completely missing in the old game. And
yeah, I'm not sure I like the color, this strange red that is the highlight here, and that arrow. It's sometimes not 100% clear, but in principle, I agree. Yeah, that's nice to have that. As I said, maybe it's just a matter of visibility and how it's displayed right now. But that we get all this info is definitely helpful, and it will also be probably pretty good for people to learn the game and figure out what support fire even is and how that works and what units you need to think about. And it might even help because how many times have either of us done that? We attacked the unit and completely forgot that there was an artillery behind them. So just because we were already thinking two steps ahead already. So now we would see an arrow and think, oh, wait, yeah, I forgot about that. So it's certainly helpful, yeah. There was one thing a little earlier where I agree with Richard Martin. I did not see that was an ambush. There needs to be a big text, something, unit ambush or something. That was not obvious at all that was an ambush.
Yeah, you have to specifically look for it to see it, but yeah.
I still didn't see it, and I looked for it. There needs to be something really big, because Richard Martin was right. An ambush is a big deal. That needs to be visible, even if you're a little distracted. You still need to see that.
True, but
there should even be a sound effect, maybe, or something like that.
Definitely. But other than that, I think I like the representation of what's visible and what's not visible.
Yeah. I also like the animations, how the tanks move. That all looks nice.
And the markers on the unit, what's currently active. And yeah, so I like a lot of things that are highlighting what's going on. But you're right, some of the highlights are not visible enough at the moment. Yeah, and once again, this infantry unit here on this field is kind of in camouflage, so it's pretty hard to see.
Right, so it will still do some support fire, but hopefully it will do a little bit less damage to me. So I'm going to attack. And attack with my second unit as well. And it looks like enemy unit was overwhelmed with my attack, and so it retreated. And now I am going to finish it with my tank here. And once again it was an overrun attack, so now I have a bonus movement, and I can capture this final victory hex on the same turn. Right, so it was the last victory hex, and we have won this mission.
Right, yeah, so in answer
Note how he has won immediately without any chance for the AI to take it back.
Yeah. That, yeah. It's just a change. I don't know how I feel about that. So, yeah, any thoughts summing the first thing we saw up?
Yeah, I think that it introduced the basic mechanics and talked about what the game is even about. For anybody that has already played the game, the first game, that shouldn't be much of a surprise. There were a couple of changes, definitely movement speed and minor other things, but it seems fine. There's definitely certain mechanics that make me curious on how they're going to play out and how they're going to be balanced. But for the most part, it doesn't seem that different from what we're used to. The most extreme examples are probably the movement speed along roads and the airfield sniping.
Yeah, I agree.
Other than that, it's just, yeah, that the UI could be improved a little bit where the markers are concerned. Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. And regarding the movement speed, I think it very much depends on map design, because if you have enough units to form a coherent front line, that's absolutely not a problem. But if you have maps where there are only a few units on the field, yeah, that can get problematic, because then there's no way to stop that.
Yeah, what I disliked about that a little bit was, especially after the books that I've been reading about Operation Barbarossa, it really should depend on where you are. If this works like this in Western Europe, fine. If this works like this in Russia, I have a major problem with this, because the Russian roads are not at all on the same level as a Western European road around this time. The Germans are actually complaining from day one on how incredibly terrible the roads are, and that the vehicles get stuck. That will also be part of our grand discussion, that the bad weather setting in October, no, that's not where it started. They had massive issues right from the start, and they didn't move as fast as they expected to at all right from the beginning. So if a tank can move like this in the steppes of Russia, just because there's technically a road, yeah, a Russian road is not the same as a road in Belgium, not even close. So the tanks shouldn't be able to move as far as this, especially not the trucks of the infantry. So, and I'm not so sure about this working like this in Operation Barbarossa. That would be super unrealistic, because especially the trucks were breaking down left, right, and center. I'm not sure that would be a very good representation. There should definitely be less roads in the map design then. Because if you can move this quickly in a Russian map, I'm not so sure about that. That's a little too extreme in terms of how far you can move.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I like that the road makes a difference, because
absolutely,
it's a strategic feature, and that's always a good thing, because it makes no sense that at the moment I think most units can go as fast on the plains than they can go on the roads.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a matter of map design.
Yeah.
you shouldn't place roads like this on a Russian map everywhere, because that just wouldn't fit. In Western Europe, you absolutely should, because even back then they had a great road network. That's why the Germans could move so fast. But in Russia, that shouldn't be the case. You should maybe have one. Technically, you shouldn't even have that. But you should definitely limit the amount of roads, because otherwise the Germans will be able to move way too quickly.
Yep. And I think I like the feature of the roads. I was just initially a little bit scared, and it really depends on if the AI still will blindly rush in at full movement range, because then this would be a little bit problematic, because then you always will get hit out of nowhere with no warning whatsoever.
Yeah, but on the bright side, if this really is limited to roads, which I'm assuming it is, he mentioned that several times in the videos. Here, it's a road, that's why I can move this fast. So I'm assuming it's really a bonus in terms of movement to the roads. If the AI, that will force the AI on the roads, which it should, because that's what they did back then, then ambushes might become even more important, because we already now manage to ambush units because we know they're probably going to use the road. This will make it even more likely that we know if they're coming, we know where they're coming. So putting an anti-tank unit on a road will probably be even more beneficial now, because it makes it more likely that that's exactly where the enemy is going to come from.
True. So we will see. It really depends on how the AI actually will work in this game. So let's continue. This seems like a, well, very sophisticated tactical puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, as we have seen, Panzer II is actually quite easy to play. But this game can also have a lot of depth. And I'm going to show it here using this very small example. It's really small, it fits on one screen. I'm not going to scroll around at all for this demonstration. And let's see what's going on here. So my units are assaulting the final enemy position, 2 victory hexes, here and here. And incidentally, it's my last turn. I need to capture both hexes or I lose the game. The problem is enemy units are quite powerful, they are stronger than mine. For example, these tanks here, the Tiger and the Panther. If I try to attack them head-on, the odds are really not in my favor. And I cannot even approach enemy victory hex on the right. So the left flank is slightly more exposed, so I'm going to attack here. The problem is, even here the odds are really not in my favor. There is a support unit here, this artillery. So what can I do about it? First, this unit here is a Recon. And Recons in Panzer II have a unique ability to make several moves in a single turn, something called phased movement. And this ability allows them to sneak through enemy zone of control. So I can actually reach this artillery support and attack it. But it's in its turn protected by this anti-tank unit here. So to get slightly better odds, I'm going to suppress this anti-tank with my own artillery. Right, so one opponent was killed and 4 more are suppressed, and this means that half of this unit's strength is not available to provide any support. So now I have slightly better odds. They are still not in my favor, but not much I can do about it, so I will just attack. So now enemy support is slightly weakened, and as an additional bonus, my Recon is standing next to enemy unit. This gives me bonus to every attack on this unit. Can I do anything else to improve my odds? Actually, I can. There is this small guy here, and it's an observation aircraft. All its attack ratings are 0. But it provides exactly the same bonus as Recon. if I place it over enemy unit, I get an additional bonus. So that's all I could do to make my attack easier, and I'm just going to attack this infantry unit. So let's see what happened here. My attack was barely enough to overwhelm enemy infantry, and it retreated from its defensive position. And now my recon can still make some moves, so I'm going to take this victory hex. One taken, one more to go. Wow. But all of a sudden, my tank here is back in the game, because I can move to the right and overrun this infantry. And this will give me a bonus attack. The problem is this anti-tank here once again provides support fire. And if there is any support fire involved, overrun does not trigger. And can I do anything to disable support from this anti-tank unit? It turns out that I can. If we look at its stats, we will see that actually it has just 2 points of ammo left. So I'm going to split this little tank here, and I will just launch an attack. And I'm really feeling bad about it now, because I sent this tank to a suicide mission. But its noble sacrifice was not in vain, because this unit here has 0 ammo now. It's not going to support anyone anymore. And so I can attack this infantry, and yes, it's overrun attack. So now I can make another move. I go here, and I can attack this guy. Since it's out of ammo and will not shoot back, my attack is going to be pretty devastating, but it's not enough to kill this unit, unfortunately.
Can you pause?
Let's do it.
Sure.
Because I want that unit to be still visible, actually. Before I go into all these tactics that are going on, I mean, it's done now anyway. All he does from this point on is move the recon in. That is a 12.8 centimeter flak in the town there. What exactly is that thing to the right of it? Is that the same thing, or is that an 8.8? Why is the 12.8 centimeter flak, especially its carriage, so much smaller than the other one? That's a little thing where I see, wait, why is the scaling off on those 2 units?
I don't know, but it's in general, I find it for the moment rather difficult to recognize specific tank types and unit types.
Yeah,
Just
but that's
by
a
looking at it.
12.8 centimeter gun. That gun is bigger than what either the Panther or the Tiger have down there. That should be at the scale of that anti-aircraft gun next to it, because that is actually an anti-aircraft gun also. Which brings also something in here. The 12.8 centimeter gun wasn't a switchable anti-aircraft gun in Panzer Corps 1. Here it apparently is, because that anti-tank gun in the city there, that's a flak. That's a 12.8 centimeter flak 40, so that seems to be switchable. I'm just not sure why it looks so small, because that's a huge gun. So that's the one thing. The other thing, what did you think about...
Maybe that's a mistake. I think looking at the visual representation, maybe that should be an anti-tank cannon.
Yeah, but from the carriage, that carriage was usually for the flak gun. So I'm assuming that is supposed to be a switchable flak. It just looks so small. It should look more like on the right, that other flak that is actually in flak mode. From the looks of it, that could even be the same unit. So it's a little confusing why that is so small. Even if it is an anti-tank gun, it still looks way too small at that caliber. But yeah, that's visual representation. Maybe that's the scaling issue, and that unit hasn't been finished. You just need to scale it up. Otherwise, it looks fine. It's just too small. But that's changing one number for the model. That's not a big deal. But what did you think about a unit in retreat being able to use its full movement range, and about him switching a unit, splitting a unit to run another unit out of ammo?
Well, it's pretty gimmicky, but it's fine. I think it's just different than in Panzer Corps 1. So it looks like there's a much bigger focus on tactics in Panzer Corps 2. That's not something I specifically like, because I would have liked more focus on strategy, but that's my personal opinion and preference. It's fine, I think. A lot of people will like it, I think, and that's fine. You can solve tactical puzzles now all the way. I'm not sure how to balance those things, because if it's necessary to solve puzzles like this for a decisive victory, then I think it will be very frustrating for many people. And if it's not necessary, it will be very easy for people who can solve those puzzles very well.
Yeah, because the amount of turns that you can save here, I would say that with regular Panzer Corps 1 mechanics, there's no way you're going to break this in one turn. I'd say with what you have available here, I mean, that's the thing. If you don't break this in one turn, the artillery, the anti-aircraft, the anti-tank gun, and the Panther and the Tiger are gonna attack you. So basically, if you do not take this in one turn, you're fucked, because they're gonna just blow everything up. That's also something that I do not like about this, actually.
Because it's like
that
sneaking in a win and not actually winning.
That's exactly it, that he wins immediately without the AI getting another turn, because, I mean, there's still a Panther and a Tiger there, and you just blew up half your core to even get in there. Like, there's a Sherman tank and a Scout in the town, and there's a Tiger, an artillery, another switchable anti-tank, anti-aircraft gun, and a Panther just sitting there. Like, they could clean up this town in an instant. Like, how is that a victory? So, I actually like the change from Panzer General to Panzer Corps, that you have to survive the next turn to actually win. That you can now again immediately win on your turn, and the AI doesn't get its turn anymore. I'm not so sure I like that, because especially in this example, this is ridiculous. This is not a victory. This is just exploiting some mechanics to get barely in there, and after that you would be screwed. So that is something I do not like about this. I mean, that the mechanics to get in there, that's fascinating, but that you immediately win by doing that I don't like.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, but yeah, saying it less direct. It's a tactical puzzle you can solve, but it's not necessarily a strategic victory here.
Yeah, there should be you should be forced to be able to hold your position after you take it. There's still a full strength Tiger and the Panther, and that's exactly what I didn't like about Panzer General, because you could pull these things off, and you end up with a unit in the victory hex that has 1 health point left, and oh yeah, I won, and you have like 10 units around you. That doesn't feel like a victory. Yeah, technically in the game mechanics it is one, but you never feel like you actually won. You feel like you cheated the game when you do something like that. I do not like how that feels, and here I definitely wouldn't feel like I've actually achieved a victory, because if I look at the units that are still alive here, I know if there was another turn, I'd be completely screwed. So I'm not so sure about this. Maybe this is a little constructed just for the demonstration, but it still shouldn't be possible to win like this.
Well, there have been a lot of games that are victory hex based, where you could sneak in ridiculous victories. So that's
Yeah,
not
I
something
know, but
new, and it definitely
that's
changes the
exactly
way
what
you
Panzer
have to
Core.
play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just that's the one thing that Panzer Core actually did better than all these other games. That it forced you to be able to defend it. That they take that away again. I think that's taking away one thing that made Panzer Core actually special in comparison to the other ones.
Yep. And Richard Martin, yeah, it's true. If you go second, then this is not the case in Panzer Core. But why not change it so that the enemy always gets the last turn?
Yeah, but if you go second, then you also have the thing that the AI already had its turn. You always make a full turn. Both sides get a chance to move. And here, I'm assuming that the Americans are moving first since they're on the attack. The AI didn't get its part of the turn anymore. I mean, you basically cut off all their movements just by moving into the victory hex, and that shouldn't be the case. And it was like that in the previous scenarios also. As soon as he moved in, the scenario was over, and he was obviously on the attack. So I'm assuming he's moving first. So if the AI is moving moving first, yeah, sure, but then it did still get its part in that turn. You still play the entire turn. Here, you don't play the entire turn anymore just because because you moved into the victory hex. And that's Panzer General mechanics, and that's exactly what I didn't like and what I really thought was a positive change in Panzer Corps. So I'm really surprised that they took that out again.
Yeah, and I generally don't like tactics that are that gimmicky because, yeah, it's not something that matters in a real battle if you can't do this in real life.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do this.
You can't break this position. It's completely impossible.
That's when I looked at it, and when I looked at it, I thought, yeah, this is a very defensible position. There's no way you're going to break that without more artillery and more support. And then he goes in and does it with pretty crappy units, and that's the thing. You shouldn't be able to do this because
Correct.
there's no way you could.
It's cool that you can solve this puzzle, but that's not what I want of a game like Panzer Corps. It just feels wrong.
Yeah, it should. If it uses tactics, it should use tactics that would work in real life, and not something like this, which has no chance of working in real life. There's just no way you can break this position with these amounts of units. There's just no way, and there shouldn't be a way. You should need to bring in additional forces to break this. That you can actually win this. I mean, again, the game mechanics are interesting and nice, but here they open up an opportunity to achieve unrealistic results, and that breaks a little bit the immersion for me. When I saw him winning this, I thought, well, I'm not so sure what I think about this. So, because it's a Tiger and a Panther and a reinforced position in a town guarded by anti-aircraft guns, a support anti-tank gun of a huge caliber and artillery, that's how well are you supposed to defend your cities if this can be broken in one turn? I mean, I'm assuming this only works because there's absolute zero entrenchment. As soon as there's entrenchment going on, this probably completely falls apart. But still,
sure.
You strafe it a couple of times with fighters and stuff like that, and then
it opens up possibilities. And Pete Mitchell, it doesn't necessarily make the game easier. But if the maps force you to do stuff like this, I absolutely don't like it.
Yeah, that's the thing. With these kinds of extreme power gaming mechanics, I'm going to call them, where experienced players know how to play this stuff to the limit, that's going to stretch the difference between a new player and an experienced player. The difference between them will be huge, and then it's going to be hard to balance maps properly because you still need to be able to win a map as an inexperienced player. But at the same time, it can't be that if you actually know how to do these tricks, that you end up like you win the map in 10 turns and you have 20 turns left and stuff like that. Because potentially you gain so much time by doing stuff like this. The gap between the experience levels of players will be huge in terms of how many turns they need. And then I don't know how you're going to balance that properly in the map design. So having stuff like this is cool, but it shouldn't go completely overboard, that you can break positions that are super hard to kill with normal tactics, that you can do that in, just like that in a turn, if you know how to exploit every single mechanic that is there. I'm not so sure how that will impact balancing. In multiplayer, it's definitely cool if you can play this to the limit and really need to make sure that you defend against every possible move that the enemy can make. But in single player against the AI, this also gives the player a huge advantage, because I really, really doubt that the AI is able to pull stuff like this off. And then, will we have situations where we have a map
it's not
where
only
you have 20
balance.
turns that you can do it in 5? I mean,
yeah, it's not only about balance. It's what you said earlier, Lieutenant Joker. It's if you open up strategies that are completely unrealistic, and it feels less like a real battle or a real war game to me. It just becomes a tactical puzzle. But
it becomes chess. Yeah.
Yeah, it breaks the immersion for me a little bit. So yeah, I don't like this focus on gimmicky tactical play.
Yeah, this move that he did right here, that is definitely something that is incredibly immersion breaking for me. Because when I see the Americans' approach here, they realistically, the way they break this is with massive air power and with superior artillery power, just like they did it historically, not with small light tanks splitting in half and the Sherman sneaking around and somehow making it in there. I'm sorry, no. This, when you look at this position, your immediate reaction is the Americans are fucked here unless they bring in more stuff. And what would the Americans do? Call for air support. That's what they would do here. That they win it like this, it's just immersion breaking, because that's not how it would happen.
Yeah, it nullifies a massive armored presence on the battlefield, and that's not okay, I think.
And that's also, that combines these gimmicky mechanics plus the fact that you can win without the enemy having a chance to react. I mean, there could be a king tiger here and a yak tiger and all that standing around, and you could completely ignore them, and that just shouldn't be the case. That's, I mean, you're completely ignoring a tiger and a panther unit here. Just no. That's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, and somebody, I think it was Maxime, was saying that they would run out of supplies. Yeah, sure, but not immediately. They still can fight.
Oh yeah, that supply thing where you see the white outline where we have encircled them. First of all, the tiger isn't even encircled. He's not in that zone. And second of all, in later you will see that actually takes a huge amount of time. I think it takes 5 turns to run this position completely out of supplies. In the next turn, the Panther, I think, would be suppressed by 2 points. That's still an 8 strength Panther and a full strength Tiger. They would annihilate this. The anti-tank gun on the outside of town is also not suppressed, neither is the artillery. They would completely take this apart. They would destroy the enemy artillery, they would destroy the Sherman, and after that, the infantry is completely helpless. This would not end well for the Americans at all. So that when you look at this and you feel like something's wrong here, that's immersion breaking. That should not be what a historical game is doing. When a person that doesn't know the game mechanics looks at this and thinks, "Oh, I can't do this," and then an experienced player comes in and actually solves this, the feeling that the inexperienced player will have is, what kind of crap game is this? This is just hacky, cheating stuff. I can guarantee you that some players will have that impression because this shouldn't work like this. There's an intuitive understanding that this is not how it should work. And that can actually turn a couple of people off, I think.
Yeah, and Richard Martin, I agree. This is harder to play, and that's more complicated than Panzer Corps 1, but I think it's more complicated and harder in a wrong way. That's what we're trying to say here.
It's not that you can do this kind of thing. It's that you can do it. It's that you can use it to achieve completely unrealistic results. That's the problem. That you have fancy mechanics like this, that's not the problem. I actually like that. And at the first glance, when I saw this, I was actually impressed that you could pull this off. But when you sit back and look at it again, you feel like, yeah, okay, but that shouldn't actually have worked. I mean, if the Panthers had split apart, and the other example that comes later where they used the splitting to actually encircle a position near the coast, that I very much like, because that's actually a realistic thing that happens. Also, the Germans on Barbarossa had to split their units to actually cover the entire front. And they had divisions that usually cover just like so and so many kilometers, cover suddenly like double or triple the amount of terrain. That did actually happen. But that's not something that would happen. So it's what it's used for is the big problem, not that you can do it.
Yeah, so let's continue, I think.
Not enough to kill this unit, unfortunately. So let's do it. And this unit surrendered. Why did it surrender? Because this gun has only one movement point, and all adjacent hexes were taken by other units. So wow, final victory hex is clear, and I can take it. The problem is all my units have moved already. But this recon here still has one final move to make. And yes, it's victory.
Yeah, so let's get.
Yeah, and look, Richard Martin, I agree that maybe that's overreacting, but I know that this is a constructed example, but still.
Yeah, true, but it's still possible.
It's still possible, and there will be more exploits like this. So you can already play in a very exploitive way in Panzer Corps 1, for example, with using surrenders and doing completely unrealistic movements just to force a surrender on something. So I already don't like that, and this opens up even more possibilities to use a playstyle that's immersion breaking for me. It's just a personal thing. I like this to be a war game and not a tactical strategy game in general.
Yeah, we already do stuff like encircle units to force a surrender by putting trucks behind them and putting artillery in trucks to encircle them. Like, that would not be something like an artillery unit on the move would not be able to cut a unit off. But we can already do that in Panzer Corps. So stuff like that should be kept to a minimum. You shouldn't make that even more possible.
Yeah, and you see someone like Goose, for example, completely basing his gameplay around stuff like this. So you can definitely exploit things like this to the maximum.
Yeah, and with the splitting, it really should limit that to some degree. Like, if you split stuff, imagine you have 3 artillery and you split them both, then you suddenly have 6 units and you can surround a unit and you attack it maybe from 1 additional hex if you leave one of the trucks out. And now you have forced a unit to surrender because you've surrounded it with trucks. that's problematic because that's not what would happen. So that's just exploit these stuff where you exploit game mechanics to achieve completely unrealistic results. That's never possible to completely avoid that in a game, I don't think. Unless you really, really are an expert in game design of this sort. But I don't think on a game of this complexity level you can actually achieve that completely. But you should have an eye for that kind of stuff, and you shouldn't introduce stuff that increases the opportunity for players to do that. Because as I said before, if there's enough chances to do this, people will learn them over time. And then you can have situations where you have a map that has 10, 20 turns to win, and a normal player takes like 19 turns, and an experienced player, by exploiting all these mechanics, can do it in 5. That's ridiculous, and that shouldn't be this extreme. And again, it's immersion breaking. When I can do this stuff, I don't feel like I'm playing World War II anymore. I just feel like I'm playing some kind of game. I want to actually feel like a general that uses its units the way they're supposed to be used, and not by putting them in trucks and surrounding people and suiciding units to run an incredibly heavy position out of ammo and just taking it in the most gimmicky way possible. That's not what a game like this should be about.
Yep. But I think enough about that. Let's continue and see what we're facing here.
Now. In this scenario, I have a small group of units encircled by the enemy, and many units are also heavily damaged, and the whole group is about to be overrun by these evil Soviet tanks here. And of course I want to break the circle, escort these units to safety, and rebuild them later. And in order to do this, I have a small relief force here, on the other side of the river. So first of all, I am going to use this little observation aircraft in order to get a better overview of the tactical situation. And now I can see all enemy units forming the circle, and I also see that both river crossings are guarded by enemy units. This bridge here and another bridge here. And of course, rivers are very difficult natural obstacles, which my tanks cannot even cross on this turn. So my mission would be pretty much impossible if it were not for this little unit here. It's a German bridging unit, which did not exist in Panzer Corps but was added in the sequel. And when placed on a river, this unit acts as a bridge. So now I can very easily cross the river with my tank and attack this anti-tank unit here. But before attacking, I'm going to soften it a little bit with my artillery. So I'm going to attack. Right. And my other artillery here, even though it's encircled, it can still fight. So I will attack with it as well. Right, so now I'm going to attack this anti-tank unit with my tank. And my attack was powerful enough to force this unit to retreat. Now I can use another tank to finish it, and this unit surrenders. Why did it surrender? Because it had only one movement point. And this movement point was spent to retreat to the river. It could not retreat the second time, so it surrendered instead. And now I have a pretty clear path to escape. So I'm going to move my artillery and my infantry and also my Stug out of Encirclement. And did I succeed in my mission? Not exactly, because this unit here does not have enough moves to escape. And also, my tank here is left exposed to enemy counterattack. So let's try it again. Why did I fail? I failed for two reasons. First, I did not consider that this infantry unit here uses a transport with a wheeled movement. It's a truck, right? And trucks move really fast along the roads, but they don't move as fast across open terrain. And a second reason why I failed was that I was thinking inside a box here. I was thinking that if my relief force is advancing from this direction, then I need to secure this river crossing. But what if we try to use this crossing instead? I'm going to use my bridging unit again, but this time around I will use it to cross this river on the left. And once again I'm going to use my artillery to suppress enemy tank guarding the crossing. So hopefully now this tank here is suppressed enough, and I'm going to attack it. And in order to attack it, I will bring in my tank which is furthest away. And it has just enough movement points to reach enemy unit and attack it. And enemy tank retreats. Now I can bring in my other tank here and launch another attack. So enemy unit retreats again and encirclement is broken, and now I have a clear path to escape. So let's try from this infantry. As I said, trucks move really fast along roads, so now I can move all the way to safety. And I can evacuate my other units as well now, but note that even though my units are damaged, they can still be used for some fighting. In particular, I'm going to finish off this Soviet tank here. And now I evacuate my infantry and artillery as well. And let's see what we have here. All units are safe, they are behind a river, and the crossing is guarded by my full-strength tank. So,
yeah, what do you think about that?
I like this because it shows what's rarely shown in demos like this, that you actually need to think about where you need to move and how to achieve a result best, and think a little bit about it before you start doing something, because the first attack was well done, but it didn't achieve the result. I think we've seen that several times when we're playing and we're attacking and we don't think about the bigger picture, what we're actually trying to achieve, but we just think about the current turn. Then you run into exactly the same problem that he ran into the first one here. There were, however, three things actually that I noticed that I would like to see improved. Well, actually, two things that I'd like to see improved, and one I found interesting. One I found interesting was that a unit will surrender once it runs out of movement points. That retreat actually costs movement points. So the tank, the Russian tank, was able to move several times in a retreat, but the anti-tank gun could only do that once, and after that it surrendered. That's interesting, and I think I actually like that. Because a unit that has only one move shouldn't be able to retreat 5 times. What I didn't like is that bridging unit actually doesn't turn into some kind of bridge visuals when it's in bridging mode. Because to me, for example, right now, especially since that thing isn't centered on the river visually, I can't tell on one go that that's actually a bridge. I wish they would add a little bit of a graphical thing to it, so it switches to a different model if it's actually in bridging mode. I would really like that. And what I didn't like, again, that's the typical Panzer Corps 1 stuff, the Sturmpanzer or the Zig 33, that mobile artillery that the Germans have there. That's a short-range infantry gun that shouldn't be able to shoot over 3 hexes. That's not a field artillery. Jesus Christ. Learn that finally, Slytherin. That's not the same thing. That's the Sturmpanzer problem again. That thing should not have 3 range. But whatever. That's the good old problem that we have in our current historical Let's Play, why we don't use the Sturmpanzer, because they're unrealistic. They should have range 1 just like a Stug, because they're exactly the same type of unit. But aside from that, I think this was actually a very good demonstration on what that you sometimes need to think about the big picture and not just about the next move.
Yeah, completely agree. There's not much to add. I like the possibilities on that one. The only thing is that maybe I'm not sure yet how the scale of the maps will be, but that very much feels like, I don't know, small scale battle where you are using single tanks and single, very small unit types.
Yeah, I'm not sure. From looking at it, it doesn't give me a feeling of the scale this is supposed to be. Yeah. Someone actually added in the comments under the Slytherin video that they'd like to see city names added to the map. That would add to the immersion and actually give this more of a feeling that this is actually a map that you're looking on top down and not just a sandbox that you play on. I agree that should be done. I would even like to see stuff like river names and stuff like that, because this should be a battle map that a general looks onto. This shouldn't feel like an actual battlefield that you see individual tanks running around, because sometimes when you look at this, that's what it feels like, and it's obviously not supposed to be that.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know from looking at this. This could be the Rhine, a huge river, but this could also be a little trickling piece of water that you can drive through with your tank. It's not obvious what the scale of this is, so they should add some stuff here that actually makes it obvious that this is a strategic map and not two little tiny rivers flowing into each other and individual tanks moving around here.
Yeah, and that might sound nitpicky, but I think that's a huge problem in terms of what people expect from the game. Because if you read the comments of the Slytherin video, you will notice that a lot of people want there to be racks of burning tanks and stuff like that. So they clearly look at this and see a single tank and a battle like close combat. And, well, the mechanics are wrong for that. You should play close combat, and that's a strategic map battle or not. I'm not sure. At least Panzer Corps 1 is. I'm not sure about this one. It's kind of in between. I'm not sure what to expect here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's also going to be from the cities, from the maps that I saw, where you have entire islands be a map. That's not going to be something that's just a couple of 100 meters. That's going to be hundreds of kilometers. So it is definitely something that can drag people into having wrong expectations, and we saw it during the beta process. Still, when it was still there, but also in follow-up videos, people want tanks to take more damage if they're shot at from the side and stuff like that. Which, no, that's not a tank being shot at from the side. That's an entire tank battalion. So it's a problem sometimes, and you should put some emphasis on the map to make sure people understand we're driving from Aachen to Berlin here. We're not driving in the suburbs of Berlin. We're driving through the entirety of Germany, and this is the Rhine River and stuff like that. So that's always the problem with these 3D maps, because it betrays the scaling. You suddenly don't know what the scaling is anymore, because it looks like you're playing with individual units. Yeah, but you can still get out of that. But as I said, city names and place names and maybe river names and stuff like that would probably help. And I really wish, I'm actually really disappointed by one thing. I wish they would actually start giving these units historical names and not still do this incremental numbering, like first Panzer 4G. But like, what the fuck is that supposed to be? That makes it even worse. That makes it again actually feel like that's an individual Panzer 4G. That should be the first Panzer Battalion or something like that. That should not be first and second and third Panzer G. That only adds to the problem for new players, because they don't know exactly what they're actually moving around here.
Yeah,
And
like
they might even do tactics like they see, oh, there's an enemy tank that is actually facing the other way. So if I'm attacking it from behind, I'm probably going to do a whole lot of damage. And then you just don't.
Yeah.
And then you don't understand why.
It's a problem with expectation, yeah. And you're giving... If you look at this and don't know anything about Panzer Corps or Panzer General, you will completely get a wrong impression what you're looking here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why there needs to be some focus on making clear to the player, you're not moving an individual tank here. This is a Panzer battalion. This is a schwere Panzerabteilung. This is a complete infantry division, something like that. And not this is an individual tank that you're moving around here, and it matters from which side you're attacking it. That's dangerous. And
it will get people disappointed. That's the problem.
Yeah, it will people get disappointed or confused or have the wrong expectations. And we really should... they want to get a bigger target audience with this game. That's obvious. That's why they go for this graphic in the first place. And that means there's going to be a lot more players that just see a video of this on Steam and are going to play it, that never actually played a game like this. They will not understand that this is an operational level game and not a low tactics level game where you move individual units around. And the game should make a little bit more of an effort on making that clear to new players.
Yeah, but they are doing the opposite. So the tanks, for example, actually move the turrets and stuff like that when they are firing. So it really reinforces the impression that this is a single tank.
Yeah, not saying that the animations are bad or anything.
No, that's not the problem.
And they look good. It's just that there needs to be some additional stuff here. That it would already help if on the strategic map they would replace or at least optionally replace these units with NATO counters or anything that gives an impression that this is actually a unit on a big map. This is not a tank. This is actually an entire battalion that you're talking about here. I don't know exactly what they can do in every case to make that a little bit more clear, but it definitely seems like this could become a potential problem. Yeah, because people look at this and see the animations, and especially later when they do this simultaneous turn where all all units move at the same time. People are going to see that in game trailers, and they think they're going to think this is something like Blitzkrieg, like this the real-time strategy game. And it's not even close. So yeah, they need to be careful with that, especially if they expect people to get into advanced tactics like this, thinking about every turn and stuff like that. People will take some time to get even into the thinking that is necessary to pull that off, and not think like this is just like real-time strategy game. You just send your units forward and you rush the enemy with a major tank rush, and then you're going to win. That's not how a game like this works, and the visuals betray you into potentially expecting that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's continue.
It's a perfect solution to our little tactical problem. So once again, we can see here that by using superior tactics, we can achieve much more using exactly the same forces. The Panzer Core 2 gameplay, I wanted to show a few more cool features which we have implemented in the game. And the first such cool feature is undo. So in Panzer Core there was undo move command. In Panzer Core 2 we decided to take it one step further. So imagine, for example, that we are attacking this defensive position here. Let's do some attacks, some support fire going as well. Let's do some movement, some more attack. And I think that my attack went pretty well. But imagine that I changed my mind and wanted to do it completely differently. I can do just that. I press undo, 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 and undo. And I am back to initial state. This also works in the middle of the animation. For example, I select a tank here and I send it moving somewhere, but I change my mind in the middle of it and I just press undo and I am back to my initial state. I think it's a pretty unique feature in a game like this. Of course, you can turn undo off completely or limit it to, say, 3 times per mission, but I think it's a really great feature. Second cool feature which we have implemented is simultaneous movement. So probably you have already noticed in previous demos that you can give an order to a unit and then give next order without waiting for the first one to finish. And it really can speed up your gameplay. But simultaneous movement applies to AI turn as well, and to show it, I have created this little funny example. So you can totally watch the AI turn the old way, like in Panzer Core 1, unit by unit. You can clearly see what's going on, who attacks whom, and so on and so forth. But if you think that it's a little bit too slow, then you can press a magic button, and the AI turn will look like this. Then you can revert to the old way again, and the AI will move unit by unit. But at any moment you can speed it up again. And you can do this as many times as you want, really. Switch between one mode and the other mode.
Yeah, I'm going to jump to the next. I think that's...
Yeah,
it's fine if you can turn it off and on. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I like this. I'm not sure what I think about the undo because, well, I like it. I just don't know how exactly it's going to work, because we all know you can have that problem where you uncover a unit. Can you then still do undo? What if you get ambushed? Can you still do undo? What if you are on a move and you're about to get ambushed and then you undo during the move? Is that still possible? Does that trigger the ambush? Does that not trigger the ambush? To me, that's not clear under which conditions this is actually going to work.
Yeah, it seems like you simply can undo, but I'm expecting that most players that play on higher levels will switch this off, because yeah, that's a feature for very casual players, I think.
Yeah,
or if you want to play around with a certain situation and find the most exploitive way to break a position.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice if you're trying out new tactics and you've been struggling with a scenario for ages and you just want to figure out ways to do it. In a video, it might also, or in a stream, it might also be fun because you can actually make tutorial videos where you show, okay, I could have done it like this. Let's go back and we could do it like this without constantly having to save and reload.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a cool feature. What I didn't understand the first time I watched this, the simultaneous AI movement, that wasn't actually a replay. That was actually the live AI turn during a gameplay. I'm not actually sure who's going to use that, because if it's the first time you see the AI move, I don't think you want that to happen at the same time, because you have no idea what's going on. For a replay, that might be fun for making a video, but I don't think it is very useful if you're actually playing.
I don't know. I think some people will use it just to speed things up.
Oh yeah, especially if you're near an end and you're gonna win anyway, and you don't want to wait for the AI to move every single crappy unit that it still has
Depends
left.
on the
Yeah,
size
in that
of the
case,
maps,
definitely.
and I think it's fine to have the options. Why not?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. It's just that initially I thought that was a replay feature, but it seems it's actually a gameplay feature. Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, this is basically again showing that you can have everything move at the same time, and it definitely looks cool. Yeah, but they probably shouldn't
keep in mind
put
that
too
a
much
lot of
emphasis
stuff
on
which we are
this
seeing now is
in
work in
their
progress.
gameplay trailers,
likely
because
to
yet
change
again, this is
before the
giving
release.
people the wrong impression of what this game is.
But now we see
But
tanks
it
and
should still give you
mountains.
some idea.
Yeah, they still look very weird.
But it's fine. It's much better than before.
Yeah, it doesn't look as bad, but I still don't like it very
Yeah,
much.
but it's
whatever.
to be honest, it's completely
So I
fine.
think
It
all
won't
looks
break
pretty cool,
anything.
actually, but
No,
the most
yeah,
important
it still looks a
point
little
here is
silly,
that
but that's
this
yeah,
mode
something I
save
can live
you
with.
a lot
Yeah.
of time, and ultimately this results in a much better gameplay experience.
But the simultaneous battles, again, for gameplay purposes, I think
The
that's
last cool
going to be
feature
completely
which I wanted
useless.
to
But it's
show
definitely
is
going to make for some cool
simultaneous
videos. They just shouldn't
in
focus it
Panzer
too much in the
it is
trailers,
allowed to have up to 8 players
not
on
to
the
give
same
people
map.
too much of a strange
some of these players
impression
can be
of the game.
joined
They
in
should
an
focus on
alliance.
normal gameplay initially on
Already
that, I
seen
think.
Yeah. So I think let's switch to the next gameplay or featured gameplay, where we now see the surround and supply mechanic.
Yeah, this one I liked actually best.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Some examples of encirclements. And now I wanted to take a more in-depth look at this new mechanic, because I think that it's really, really important. It's important for two reasons. One reason is that it can be used on any scale, from tactical to grand strategic, covering the whole scenario, as we will see here. And second reason is that this mechanic can really be used to defeat a much stronger opponent, and this is also what we will see in this example. So I have removed Fog of War so that it's more clear what's going on, and we can see enemy group of units, which is really, really strong. I only have 6 tanks here, and what I am going to do, I am going to create a grand encirclement, which will contain the whole enemy force. In order to achieve that, I am going to split some of my best tanks and fill all gaps between impassable terrain on this map. Of course, by splitting, I've also made my tanks weaker, so I'm going to back up them with anti-tank units behind. So this is the land part of my encirclement complete. But now I also need to block the ports, this port here and another one here. And I can do just that. I have 2 ships. I can send one ship into this little bay and another ship to this little bay. So here is my grand encirclement completed. I hope that my line will hold long enough, so let's see what happens. So the AI is attacking in force, but let's note two things. So first thing is that these two tigers have left behind. And the reason is these tanks need to protect victory hexes. If they leave, then my ships here will capture the ports and the game will be over. However, even though these tanks do not participate in the fighting at all, they are still affected by my encirclement. As we can see here, they already have 2 points of suppression. And this is really the whole point. I can affect enemy units without fighting them directly. Okay, so I have taken some losses, but my line holds. I cannot buy any new units on this map because I don't have any supply hexes available, but I can still replace my tanks here. And also I am going to close this gap because if enemy unit comes to this hex, it will be more difficult to contain him, and I will just continue to hold my line. So once again my line holds, just barely, because here was a real danger. I am going to replace all these units now. And also there is this little guy here who is trying to escape, so I'm going to block him. And I will pass turn to my opponent again. So once again, the northern part of my line is the most dangerous. I will close the gap with another unit while I replace this one, and I need to replace this tank as well. But otherwise my line holds, and by now you are getting the idea. If you look at these guys here, they already have 6 points of suppression, and with each passing turn 2 more points will be added. So pretty soon this whole enemy group of units will become pretty incapable to fight. Fast forward a few turns and my line did hold, and the whole enemy group is completely suppressed in red zone, and it cannot really fight anymore. I can very easily push back enemy units, and I can now slowly advance forward with my own units. Also note that the units begin to surrender en masse because many of them ran out of fuel, and without fuel they cannot retreat. So when attacked, they surrender instead. So things are beginning to look really desperate for my opponent here. Fast forward a few more turns, and my Grand Encirclement has broken into 2 smaller ones, and my units are finishing the elimination of the enemy. And I can actually already take this final victory hex and finish this mission. So
let's actually switch a little bit back. So your thoughts on that, Lieutenant Joker?
Yeah, this was something I really liked. Here I also liked the splitting of the units, because this is actually a realistic use of that. As I said, The Germans did that in several cases on the Eastern Front because they just couldn't cover that wide a front, so they spread out their units more, and the division covered much more than it would usually do. So that definitely happened, and also in the major pockets that they formed in Russia that sometimes leaked like a sieve, but they tried to close them, and they had to spread out units to be able to contain the enemy. That's definitely something that happened. What I found curious here is that the effect is actually suppression. They're not running out the enemy out of supplies.
It seems like it. They He said that some of the tanks didn't have any fuel left, but I think they just can't resupply.
Yeah, they can't resupply, but they don't immediately run out. But I was kind of expecting originally that would be the only effect, that you just cut them off of supplies. But they get suppression on top of that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Because it's not a major effect. I think you will hardly ever fight a battle like this. But it's a small thing that can make a battle more easy or easier, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with this, you could actually really simulate the Battle of Stalingrad and stuff like that, or the pocket at Bialystok, Minsk, and stuff like that. You definitely could simulate that, because right now there's not really a game mechanic in Panzer Corps 1 where you can really actually simulate a pocket. Especially in Bialystok Minsk scenario in Soviet Corps, you're basically forming the Bialystok Minsk pocket, and you just hold out and you destroy German panzers left, right, and center. While in reality, you should run out of supplies and everything within a couple of turns. But you can actually hold that pocket indefinitely, which is why I don't like that scenario very much to begin with. But with this, you would now be able to actually simulate that battle properly. I also like that there's a certain suppression and not just running out of supplies, because, as I said, I read about the Eastern Front now, and I saw what actually happened. The Germans weren't encircled, but they ran into major supply problems because their own supply system was inadequate. So it basically had the same effect, and what that caused was not just they ran out of supplies, but they also started not using their own supplies because they didn't know when they were going to get them back. So they gave the units the orders, for example, artillery, not to shoot anymore for barrage fire, but to just shoot in emergency situations and only on designated targets. So that is kind of a form of suppression, because the unit, even though it still has some supplies, it can't act the way it would normally. So I think this is actually the most realistic game mechanic that they introduced, that simulates a realistic effect during a battle. It's also gradual. It doesn't happen immediately. It happens over several turns, like 5 turns. So you have every chance in the world to still break out. And I think the AI, if they had focused their units on one sector a little bit more here, they would be able to break out. So it's not an automatic win. You still need to be able to hold that encirclement. And it's not an automatic loss if you're in there. The one thing that I wasn't sure about how that's going to work is he mentioned the Tigers have to protect the cities, otherwise the ships could take them. Richard Martin already mentioned that ships had ground forces aboard, so they would certainly be able to take a port. Yeah, that I get. I'm just not sure how do you take the port back? What would that actually look like if a ship takes a port? Is the ship just in there? If yes, how do you get the ship out? Obviously, a Tiger isn't very good at destroying a ship. So is it exactly like it is now, that you would push the ship out, and the ship, if it gets engaged, is automatically pushed out, or does it actually spawn an infantry unit, or how does that work? I wish they had shown that, because I don't really know how that will work exactly, that mechanic. I'm not opposed to it working. I think that's realistic. I'm just not sure how that's going to work exactly.
Yeah, we will see. We will see. Yeah, but I also like that because it opens up a lot of strategic possibilities, like not For example, the map Grand Campaign 41, where you advance on Moscow and you have this pocket forming at, I forgot the name. Vyazma, yeah. Like I did it, just move on towards Moscow and contain this force. That was a huge pain, and that would have been easier because they would have run out of supplies by the time I got to Moscow. And yeah, I think that opens up options, and that's great, yeah.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, I think Richard Martin also mentioned that what role rail lines and stuff like that will play. I definitely like that you have to blockade the ports here as well, and that you can't just blockade them on land and then they immediately run out of supplies. You also have to block the ports. So holding a port will be of major importance in this kind of thing. I wish there was even a little bit more complex, that for a certain amount of units you need more than one port to stay in supply, but that's not really necessary. It would be cool, but
yeah, but
it definitely gives ports more of a strategic importance now.
Yeah, I think you in a game like Panzer Corps, you shouldn't overcomplicate things, and I think it's pretty perfect how they implemented it. We still have to play with it to see it really in action, but it looks good to me.
Yeah, it definitely will make scenarios like Norway and especially D-Day very much more important, because if the Germans manage to take your port away, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you run out of supplies very, very quickly, and you get suppressed. So this will open up new opportunities to defeat the D-Day invasion. You just need to cut off all the ports, and then the Allies will be in major trouble. So, and in Norway, now you really need to take the port towns, because otherwise, at some point, you're not going to be able to advance. So,
yeah, and
that will make it more understandable why port towns were the first target of these naval invasions.
And another interesting thing, I'm not entirely sure, maybe they mentioned it somewhere, but I didn't get it. What are actually hexes that spawn supplies?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. From what I understood here, he blocked all the hexes that were passable terrain, so the thick forests can't be passed by the panzers anyway.
Yeah.
So
I get
as
that.
long as he blocked everything in a way that a unit can't move out of this zone immediately, including zone of control, that's when you block it. So as soon as a unit can't move out without running into your zone of control at one point, you have it contained. So I'm not sure there's actually a number of hexes that you have to block. It's just that you basically have to move around these units so they cannot move out without hitting your zone of control.
Yeah, I get that. That's pretty clear. But where does supply come from? It doesn't matter if I surround a certain area and then a hex within spawns the supplies. It will do nothing. Do you get what I mean?
I don't think the supplies. Well, I guess if
in this case, it's clear that the
reaching the map corner, I guess.
I don't know.
Corners? I mean, they just need to get out of the encirclement that you form somewhere. So if you leave a hex to anywhere, in any direction, they can get supplies, apparently. I don't think the supplies come from a specific direction. I would say outside the map. So if you can move theoretically anywhere to the map corner without running into your zone of control, you're in supply. That's how I see that right now. I mean, the sea obviously happens. Also, the Panzer obviously can't move over the sea, but still, if the port has a connection to the map corner,
that could be it. Yeah.
Yeah. So from what I understand, you just have to block them in all directions, basically. So I'm not sure that the supply is coming from anywhere specific. You just have to make sure they can't get anything from any side. What I also found interesting that he said that he cannot buy additional units because he doesn't have any supply hexes. I'm assuming that just means a normal hex with a flag, because I don't see any American flags on this map. So I'm assuming that a supply hex where you can buy new units is just any city hex with a flag.
I don't know. But he still can reinforce, but
Yeah, reinforce he can, but he couldn't buy any new units. So deployment of units is certainly limited to certain locations. But I will assume that that is just any flag.
But he has a flag. There's a British flag. It's barely visible, but there is one.
Where?
In this crossing where the road goes in circle.
There's
Here?
a British flag there?
There's a British flag here. And there's an American flag back there where the green circle is. It's barely visible, but it's there.
Oh yeah, now I see it. Well, then I guess a supply hex is a special kind of flag. Yeah, you're right, there are actually flags. So yeah, then I guess it has to be a certain kind of flag, maybe only victory hexes, we don't know. But he definitely mentioned there's a specific kind of hex where you can buy new units.
We will
I
see.
actually like that you can't deploy them everywhere, because
Yeah.
that way scenario designers can actually design a scenario where you say you can't buy anything new here, you have what you have, which I like anyway. I don't like this buying new stuff during a battle anyway. I think that's stupid and unrealistic.
Yeah, that's the worst thing about Panzer Corps and Panzer General. This unit spam spawn thing. If
Yeah,
we
getting
get
new
rid of
stuff-
that, that's a huge improvement.
Yeah, getting new stuff at the edge of the map and having exit hexes to move stuff out and get new stuff in, that is okay, because reinforcements can always arrive. But that you move forward and then you can buy new units in the middle of the map, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, some questions in the chat. Sorry, I probably missed a lot of things. If we missed something, please just ask again. But Anton is asking, shouldn't tanks be allowed to travel even through thick forest? No, definitely not. You can't drive a tank through a thick forest without any roads being there. You will immediately get stuck. I know that from own experience. So nope, that's not possible. And maybe especially not a whole tank unit. That's completely out of the question.
Yeah, again, we're not talking about individual tanks here. And even an individual tank, a thick forest, that is really something with a lot of underbrush, with the trees standing very close. It's not just trees. It's not like one of these forests that is artificially planted where there's forest trees standing in rows and you can easily walk between them with your dog. Now, a real naturally grown forest has a ton of underbrush and roots and fallen trees and all kinds of crap. There's no way a tank can move through that. Even if it would try, it would probably throw a track or anything like that. And again, this is not even an individual tank. This is an entire tank battalion. That's like 200 tanks.
Yeah.
There's no way you can move 200 tanks through a forest and not lose half your units from getting stuck. I mean, they would be able to move in there, but I can guarantee you 90% of them would get stuck after the first couple of meters, because you slip and slide and get stuck in all kinds of crap. There's no way a tank can move through that normally. And even if they somehow managed it, it would take them ages. And they would be super vulnerable while doing it. There's just no way.
Yeah, you can definitely move through a normal forest. If it's a forest you're normally used to, you can definitely go through if there's not a lot of underbrush. I don't know how this is called. Yeah, if it's a regular forested forest, then you can go through. You don't even need the
there's
roads,
also going to
but
be forest worker paths and stuff like that in a normal forest, and walking paths for people to walk through or some cars to drive through. That's a forest that we're familiar with. But if you go into a wild growing forest in a natural reserve or a natural park, like in Poland or certain areas in Bavaria or in Austria or anywhere where there's not forests where people walk through, but forests that haven't been touched in 50 years, by any human, then yeah, that's not a forest that you can easily go through. That's forest that you couldn't even walk through by foot easily, because there's tons of growth of all kinds of crap between the trees that you wouldn't even get through that easily on foot, let alone with a tank.
Yeah, next question we have. So is it a good game or not? Well, we still have to try it, but I would say yes, it definitely has potential. It does not only have upsides compared to Panzer Corps 1, but it has upsides, and I think you have to treat it like a new game and not just like another Panzer Corps. I definitely will play both. It's not like this will replace Panzer Corps. It's a different game, I think.
Yeah, and as we said, so all the criticisms that we had are the UI stuff can be easily fixed. Even if the developers don't do it, I think modders can easily fix that by just making things a little bigger. And the rest, in terms of game mechanics, as we said, it depends on how it's employed. If the map is designed that you need gimmicky stuff to win and makes it unrealistic, then it's going to be trash. If it's properly done, for example, like on this map, this is something that I can easily see representing a real battle very, very well. I mean, this was done. Like you cut off landings, or the Germans are retreating from North Africa here, and the Allies are closing in and encircling them. So the remainder of the Afrika Korps surrenders to them because they got encircled. You could the Dunkirk encirclement. You could do like this. There's a ton of cool things that you can do with this. So I really like certain things I see. I haven't seen much of the naval and air combat yet, so I'm not sure what I think about those. Haven't seen enough of them. We'll have to figure that out. But in general, I don't think this will be a bad game. There might be a couple of exploits that need to be adjusted, but let's not forget these days, a game never stays in the state that it is on release. They can always patch things and change stuff later after release if it turns out to be crap. So I think this game has certain potential. The graphics certainly lend it, as we said, to misinterpretation of what is going on, but that's mostly what new players are going to be affected by. That's not going to be something that we specifically suffer from. It's just something for us. It's just, since we don't see any city names in anything, for us it's maybe a little bit difficult to figure out what's actually going on in terms of scale, but we still know what's going on. But new players might need a little bit more indications. But it's definitely a game that has a lot of potential.
Yep, definitely. And yeah, close combat was a question. Yeah, well, it's not. That's one of the problems. You just can't compare this game to close combat. Totally different games, and I like both. And this now looks a lot more like close combat, but it's not. So I'm not sure if I interpreted the question correctly, but very different games.
Yeah. And there's someone also asked, even if engineers are nearby, yeah, even then, well, because what are the engineers going to do? Blow up half the forest? I mean, no. You can, to get tanks through a forest, you'd basically have to build a road through it. And there's forests that are kilometers long in places like Russia and Poland, and where the Germans moved through. Like, or if you drive through the forests of Bavaria or Austria, like, what are you going to do? Build a road through it? I mean, how long are the engineers going to be busy? You can't just blow up a brush here and there and expect you have made room for the tank. We're not driving through 5 meters of brush here. That's kilometers of deep forest. It just doesn't work. Even today's tanks can't do that. They would also get stuck. They would throw their tracks.
Yeah, and
you just can't drive something through that.
You don't need an actual road through the forest, but if it's a forest where there are only trees and nothing else, and then you can drive through that, no problem.
Yeah, you need flat ground.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. You need something where you don't slip and slide left, right, and center over roots and brush and stuff like that. I mean, tanks. It's not like you sometimes see like a tank just drive through everything and kicks over trees and stuff. That's not really how that happens. A small tree can be pushed over by a tank, yeah, but a big tree with tons of underbrush is going to be a major obstacle for a tank. There's also forests are not flat. There may be huge grooves in the ground, like where it suddenly goes 4 meters down, and on the other side there's a steep incline again with tons of old leaves and brush and old parts of trees are lying around. The tank will not be able to get up there. And also, again, these are not individual tanks. This is an entire tank unit, this entire tank battalion. That means you have all the supply columns, all the support stuff, all the mechanics, all the supply trucks. There's hundreds of trucks that need to follow these tanks. How are they supposed to go through that? Even if the tanks have a hard time, the trucks certainly are not going to make it through there. So yeah, sometimes the trees are going to be so close together that there's not even enough room between them for a truck to go through, let alone a 40-ton tank. There's no way you can do that. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and Thumper is, borrowing mechanics from Unity of Command. Yeah, kind of. I think the supply mechanics kind of work that way, but Unity of Command has a definite supply source, and that's why I was asking if it's the same in Panzer Corps 2.
I don't think so, but yeah,
I
in
really
terms
liked,
of cutting it off, I would agree. It's borrowed from that game.
Yeah. Because in Unity of Command, it's very much a fight about supplies, and yeah, I don't think it's that extreme here.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be. That would be a little too much for a game like Panzer Corps, I think.
Yeah, it's fine in Unity of Command, but the level is, well, the scale of Unity of Command is different.
Yeah, and it's a more complex game where you think it's more a game that actually focuses a lot more on supply lines and stuff like that. Panzer Corps should remain, for the most part, a beer and pretzels game, and these advanced tactics shouldn't be necessary to win. They should be for advanced players, and it should also be able to be played casually. That was always the big strength of Panzer Corps, that on lower difficulty levels you can also play it a little bit more casually. But it's certainly nice to have. It's from what I can see, it's also well implemented, this cutting off supplies. I can see a lot of that. That was actually something that I missed in Panzer Corps and Panzer General. That's something like the Dunkirk encirclement, the big pockets in Soviet Russia, and also being able to be cut off from supplies when you naval land somewhere. That is actually a big importance. Like in Sea Line, if you do Sea Line and you advance towards London, and in the back the AI captures all your ports, currently that doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. As long as you're not surrounded by enemy units, you can supply all you want. So that is unrealistic. That can now be properly implemented, that naval landings are actually a risk, and that you need a proper supply line, and that you can form pockets and stuff like that. That will make certain scenarios a lot more historically accurate, and you can play it a lot more historically accurate. And I like that.
Yeah, so summing up, it looks good, almost great. My only worry is that, there are two gimmicky tactical puzzle-solving battles, and we'll have to see how the AI actually behaves. So there is potential that, well, if there's a lot of splitting and long-range movement involved, that it can get pretty annoying. But I certainly hope they designing the maps for the campaigns very well.
I actually think they would fix that already by including the enemy last turn again, by giving the enemy a chance to react again. Because I think that one example that was super constructed with the splitting and running out of ammo and all that stuff, that would already be fixed if the AI, the German AI, gets a chance to react to that. That would immediately make that entire tactic useless.
Yep.
And I think it should be useless, because that's not a way you should be able to win that battle. And if they give the AI a chance to react, that would already fix it. Then being able to split and move and overrun and all that would be okay, because then you can only do it if you actually defeat the enemy with doing it, and not by in last moment slip in with a 2-strength unit behind 3 tanks and an elephant. Like, nah, come on, that shouldn't be possible. Introduce that again. Fix that the AI gets another turn, just like in Panzer Corps, and that will fix most of the problems I see here already.
Sure, and I agree, Richard Martin. If the AI works out smarter, or a lot smarter than in Panzer Corps 1, it will be a super great game. If it doesn't, it will be, well, mediocre.
Yeah, the problem with that will be exactly because of those reasons. And even then, even if the AI is great and you can still slip by the AI and win like that, that's still going to be a problem.
Yeah, sure. So that doesn't fix that issue, but I'm talking about the overall game.
Yeah, I'm in that sense, I'd say you definitely need to improve the AI, because in the original Panzer Corps, the AI couldn't even use stuff like recon move. If you introduce tons of new features like overrun and splitting units and all this kind of stuff, using recon planes to gain bonuses and stuff like that, surround units and all that, if you add so many basically so many features that give you a major advantage in combat, the AI needs to be able to use those. Otherwise, an experienced player will be so overpowered compared to the AI that it basically potentially isn't any fun anymore, because the more you master these skills, the more you're going to be completely outmatching the AI. And if that happens, I see scenario designers going the easy route and throwing dozens of tanks at you just to compensate, and that is not what should happen. The AI needs actually to be able to at least use most of these features itself. Otherwise, it's not going to be properly balanced, and then you need to have stupid hacks to keep the AI competitive.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
Reduce the need to tons of Russian units to make the game more play. Yeah, exactly. It couldn't be that the Russian front is difficult just because they throw 50 tanks at you. It should be difficult because the Russians actually know what they're doing, which they did, actually. Initially, they did a lot of crap, but after 1941, even in December of 1941, they actually started doing coordinated attacks. So they didn't just throw shit at the wall and to see what sticks. That's only what they did initially. They didn't do that later in the war, and that's not what should happen. They should actually be able to react properly and not just throw stuff at you, because that's also why in Panzer Corps it was so difficult to properly balance something like Allied Corps, Soviet Corps. You at least have these super tanks, and a certain number of tanks is even realistic to some degree, because the Russians really did have a ton of tanks. But especially if you play the Western allies that didn't have this major advantage in numbers, they still had some advantage, but not that much. At that point, you need the AI to be good and not just throw shit at you, because if you throw Shermans at an experienced player, he's not going to be very challenged by that. So these Shermans actually need to be able to act properly, and that's going to be a difficult thing for scenario and campaign design if that doesn't work. So that definitely needs to be a focus. And that's actually what if I'm going to evaluate this, that's the first thing I'm going to look at. Is the AI actually capable of using these features? Because if it's not, then they put the focus on the wrong things, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, and that's something we still can't say. So yeah, the final verdict can't be given right now, but it definitely has potential.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential here. The real question is really, can the AI work with all of this, and is the gimmicky stuff going to be used for gimmicky stuff or for cool stuff? Those are the two big questions. Then I personally would like to see the AI still, the UI still be improved a little bit, make the things a little bit bigger, maybe even make an option where I can click a checkbox and then all the unit markers are double in size, just for ergonomics, because people like me, and I know some of my subscribers also have eye problems. So for those people, Slytherin, please give us an option to increase the size of these things a little bit. I would also like to see the damage numbers and indicators, like there's an ambush happening here, to be a little bit bigger. But honestly, even now that I look for it, with all these smoke and explosions going on, and then I see the damage numbers on top of that, I'm sorry, I can't see a red number on dark gray smoke that is animated.
Yeah, just look at the screen right here. It's very difficult to see, for example, strength numbers on this thing in the top here. I think it's 11, but you need to be able to see this.
Especially if they're suppressed and in red.
Yeah.
The contrast is just not there.
Yeah. And there's a lot of going on, and I need to be able to see that immediately, because otherwise I'm too much of my brain power is going into deciphering things here. Just at one glance, looking at this, which unit has moved, which unit can still fire, no idea.
Yeah, it's and Richard Martin, I'm not sure what you're saying here. Brilliant AI, new features not necessary. I'm not sure. I'm guessing you're saying you need AI more than new features. If you say that, I agree. But I'm not against new features. It's just that if you improve the amount of features that you can use without the AI basically keeping pace with that, you're going to increase the issue that you have with the player being better than the AI. And the more you have an issue with that, the more you need to make stupid hacks to compensate. So you need to basically advance both at the same time. For every new feature that you add, you also need to improve the AI. I'm not saying if you improve the AI, you don't need any new features, because I think something like this, encircling units, is actually a feature that I think needs to be there, because without that, you cannot properly simulate certain battles. Naval invasions become way too easily if you don't have to keep a supply line to a port. I think this is a necessary feature from a gameplay perspective, but at the same time, you need to improve the AI also. So I think both needs to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think you could make a new game and just keep the old Panzer Core 1 mechanics. I don't think that would work either, because that wouldn't be a new game. And the old mechanics, it's not like they don't have their issues. They definitely do. Like the lack of supply lines, that you can basically surround units, but just because you're not directly adjacent to them, it doesn't have any effect. That's stupid. That's also why battles like pockets, where you're defending a pocket, cannot be properly simulated in Panzer Core 1. Which is also a thing I'm actually wondering, in this mechanic, will airfields actually play a role? Will you be able to keep in supply if you have an airfield in your zone? That is something that I'm going to be curious about. But yeah, it certainly opens completely new options for scenario design. So this stuff needs to happen to improve on the concept of Panzer Core 1. But the AI certainly needs to keep pace, and the UI, needs some improvements. I think most of it is all right. I just think, just like you said, Brock, we need more preview of stuff. If I repair a unit, I need to know before I do it what it costs. The damage indications for ambush and stuff like that needs to be bigger and more clearly visible. And these unit markers are just way too small. Make them 50% bigger. I think that's enough. Maybe twice the size, but I think 50% increase is already enough. And give us more tooltips and previews and stuff like that. And maybe give the numbers a little bit more contrast, because a fully suppressed unit with a red number, I really, looking at this Tiger 2 in the port, I have no idea how strong it is. I can't read that. I just can't read that.
Me neither.
I'm assuming it's 15, but I just can't see that, honestly.
It's a 13 or 15, I don't know.
Yeah, it's something either with a 1 at the start, but it could be a 12, 13, 15. It could just be anything. I have no idea what it is. So that's not good. That needs to be visible. And dark red on dark gray, I'm sorry. That's not something you can read. And if you have dark blue and dark red as damage indicators during a battle on an animated explosion in the background with dark gray smoke and orange lighting, I'm sorry, there's no way you can see that. Not at that font size. Make that font way bigger. This is a combat game that is turn-based. The damage numbers are the most important thing about the battle. The explosion is nice, perfect, but please make it big numbers with white outlines so I can 100% see those.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the relevant stuff.
The explosion looks nice, but after the 20th explosion, I don't notice it anymore. I'm just focused on the numbers. That's all I'm interested in.
Yeah, I need to know, did I score 4 damage or 5 damage? That's what I'm interested in. I need to know that. The explosion is nice for replays and videos. It's gonna be awesome, but I need to see the numbers, and please put white outlines around them. Don't put a red number without outline on a gray background. That's horrible. That just doesn't work.
Another comment from Ray. Bad graphics. You see city-sized kitty army man vehicles down below from an overhead high recon plan. Yeah, kind of. It's not as bad as I initially thought. So it's fine. I'm still a little bit worried about easily recognizing units and even easily recognizing if this tank is my own or an enemy tank. For example, this ship here in the background. Is this a German ship, or it has the same color as the German? So it can get a little bit confusing, especially because everything is pointing in different directions. At Panzer Corps 1, everything had a fixed facing, so I could immediately tell if this is an enemy or not. And I think it's a lot more confusing.
Yeah, I think you will get used to visually identifying them, at least most of the stuff. That will take a little bit of getting used to. I also initially wasn't very happy with the perspective on the tanks that we had in Panzer Corps 1. I remember criticizing that also because I didn't immediately recognize them, but then I got used to them.
Maybe you're right.
And I could identify them. But yeah, stuff like the ships, will we be able to distinguish a light cruiser from a heavy cruiser, and if it's a German or a British one? Here I'm already, also because of the different angle, because this is a perspective camera, you can see that the top ship is actually a little bit darker than the bottom one because the light hits it differently. So that top one definitely looks like a German ship because it's way more dark gray, but it actually isn't. They're both Allied ships. So
there are huge battles. We saw a screen where this big battle was going on. There are tons of ships and planes and units. There will be huge maps, I think. And if I can't tell at first glance who's who, that's problematic.
Yeah, and especially if there's stuff, if I miss a recon unit because I didn't see it, or an infantry that is hiding in a forest and I didn't see it, and next turn that infantry captures my airfield and forces half my planes to drop out of the sky. That's
that's a rage quit.
I need to be able to see that. I would even like if there was an option, like I can hit a key and hold it down, and that will put a circle with a color under every unit.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Yeah.
Just so there's some way of actually discovering where all the units are. There needs to be something like that, because like this, I wouldn't. yeah, I'm not sure I would be able to find every unit here. Is there some infantry standing around somewhere? If you then have the SE units that are even more camouflaged with Flecktarn and stuff like this, with actual camouflaged uniforms, and I've actually seen there are going to be camouflaged tanks for the SE units again, like a red and green and brown tank or infantry standing in the middle of a fall colored forest hex. Like, ooh. I mean, yeah, great. I please put something in there so I can easily detect those units, because, or maybe properly strategic map. We said earlier we haven't seen a strategic map yet. Please put something in there so we can easily have a view where we can see where enemy units are, because yeah, otherwise we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. I'm not saying the graphics is bad. I think the graphics is nice. Yeah, Panzers on hills and mountains still look completely idiotic, but that's a minor issue. That we're not going to play a lot in mountains in World War II. The attack on Norway will probably look like ass, but it's that's edge cases.
I'm
It's
not
fine.
worried about that too.
For animations, it's gonna look great. For replays, it's actually gonna be great for video makers, I think, because you can just have cool stuff going on, and you can have the Battle of Barbarossa, just like all everything moving at the same time. It can really look impressive. Put some music over it, and I'm sure YouTubers will be able to make great videos doing this stuff. But for the actual gameplay, there need to be some features that make it easy to use. So I'm not saying the graphics is bad. I don't agree with that, but it's not the graphics that I would have chosen for all the problems that we mentioned, but it's still workable. But there need to be a couple of features to compensate for the problems that this graphics choice introduces.
Definitely. And Richard Martin is saying they hinted a bazillion of options. Yeah, that's great. If we get them, forget all of this.
Yeah, if there's enough options where you can modify this, even for some people, maybe replace the 3D units with counters or stuff like that, or just have tons of highlights and all kinds of stuff. If they have that, it's perfectly fine. Then people that just want cool movement, cool units moving around and want this 3D real-time strategy game look, they can use that. For total hardcore gamers that play the general, you can maybe even have counters or just enough highlights that you have the same thing. If you can increase the size of certain UI elements, if they have options like that, and even if they don't, that's easy to patch later.
Yep.
That's actually the advantage of a 3D engine, that you can easily scale stuff and add new options. That should be easy. So that if it's not introduced on release, it's going to be only a patch or two away. So I'm not super worried about that. I'm just saying that is necessary.
Yep. So I think that sums it up.
Will you share the link to this video with Rudancourt? Well, I guess, Brock, you can post it in the forum.
Yeah, well, I think they have tons of feedback already. If you look down...
I mean, they're running a beta test right now, so...
I don't think we invented completely new feedback here.
No, I think everything we noticed has been noticed by other people. Yeah. There's a ton of people taking part in the beta. Basically, every single one of the good experienced players that is still playing Panzer Corps 1 is probably in the beta. I was in the beta too. I went out of it because initially I just wasn't able to give them positive feedback on the graphics set, and we just had a completely different vision for the game. So I decided, we're going to butt heads here. And I actually like these people too much to get into a fight with them. I didn't want that. I just said, okay, we just have different visions for this game, so I probably shouldn't be in this beta because I can't really give enough constructive feedback here, because I would basically change most of it. But that's not saying that this is not a good game. I'm just saying I would have done it differently from the graphics perspective, but it can still work. There's certainly cool features, some still questionable to me depending on how they're done. but that is something that we'll have to see once the game is out and we can actually play it and see how the scenarios are actually
Definitely,
designed. How the randomly generated scenarios, which we've never had before, how those will work out. And what I really like, and I think that was a later thing in this video, I think we don't have to go there because that's going to be the last thing, I think, that you can actually play simultaneously in a co-op mode. I really think that will be something Brock and I might be doing at some point, where maybe we play Africa Corps, he plays the Italians and I play the Germans, or something like that, or we play the Western Allies, the Americans and the British. I'm not sure that was in this video, but it was shown somewhere.
It was in one of the dev diaries. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I definitely want to try this. Yeah, sure. And even if there's an option to play a campaign against another person, that would be great as well.
Yeah, and it even alone, like, that will make Africa Corps and Western Allies and stuff like that way cooler. Even if you just split the German army into two parts and you can play together, that will be so much.
Be extremely fun. Yeah.
Yeah, if we play like our current historical grand campaign where we play with two divisions, if we could split that, one person plays one division, the other person plays the other one. And then one approaches from the south, the other approaches from the north, and we form a pocket together. That would be cool. Like Brock playing Hoth and I play Guderian, and we meet behind Minsk. That can be fun. I think that will make for cool streams. That is certainly a feature that I really, really like, and that is actually the main thing that I think this game will introduce. The graphics will certainly lend itself to videos, even if it's questionable for gameplay. It certainly will make for cool videos and replay sessions, and the multiplayer things will definitely make for cool stuff, and randomly generated maps that are perfectly balanced will certainly make for cool multiplayer tournaments. I'm sure once that comes out, Brock and I will play some multiplayer against each other eventually. And yeah, if we can play a campaign either together or against each other, that would be cool. Yeah. The replay needs to be fixed and enhanced. Yeah, I don't think that the replay crap that we currently have in Panzer Corps 1, where things don't react to a button press and stuff like that. I mean, if they now make it that you can move a unit while another movement is still moving, I mean, if they can do that, I'm pretty sure they can keep the buttons working. I'm sure they tackled that issue. That was horribly implemented in the first one. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's going to be very, very more advanced in this one. I would be, there's no way.
Shocking if that's not the case.
Yeah, there's no way if you get something working, like you can move units simultaneously, that is already asynchronous operations going on and keeping the UI responsive while something is happening. If you have that in place already, keeping the buttons for the replay system responsive it's not going to be an issue. That's going to work. I'm 100% sure of that. This is also a game that is on a much higher level, that they want to have much more polished, that is going to be probably a lot more expensive and probably targets a much wider audience and has probably also a lot more marketing behind it. You don't do something like this and then have a crappy replay system. This needs to be polished, and I'm pretty sure they're going to do that. I'm pretty sure that they also have now a bigger team behind it. From what I know, the original Panzer Corps was basically programmed by Rudancourt all by himself. I'm pretty sure that's not the case now. I'm pretty sure he now has a decent team behind him that helps him get everything nicely polished and everything.
Yeah. That's it, I think. So definitely looking forward to the game and definitely going to play it.
We got a question here. Will Africa Corps be part of the original game, or will it be an add-on? I don't know. Do we have any info on that already? What
Maxim already answered it. Part of Africa Corps scenarios will be featured in Core Campaign.
Okay, so pretty much like the original Panzer General, probably.
Yeah,
probably. A couple of North Africa scenarios. Yeah, you probably won't be able to march all the way to India, but the historical scenarios, like the Western Desert Campaign and then the attack towards El Alamein, that will probably be included then. Yeah. But I think someone mentioned that there's another Grand Campaign 60 scenarios long thing planned. I'm not sure whether that's going to be in the base game or what.
They need something for the add-ons.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure nowadays you need, and it's fine with a game like this. We also know that their pricing policy is very fair for that kind of stuff. You need to have a game like this, which will probably cost a huge amount of money. You need to have this game be able to last a long time. Otherwise, it's not going to be really profitable because it's still, despite now looking like this and being a little bit more open to the casual audience, it's still a pretty niche genre. So they need to have a little bit more coming there. But yeah, now with the new naval engine and all that, I'm pretty sure they're going to do Pacific and some other stuff. I think they can do a lot with this now.
Yep. So yeah, despite some criticism here, I think it's mostly positive, and like I said, I think I can say we are both looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in it. I'm certainly going to feature it on my channel. Brock, you probably the same.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, you will probably see both of us still playing Panzer Corps stuff while we're in our 60s as old men sitting in the park and playing Panzer Corps, because at this point I have no idea how long we'll need to finish all this content. I mean, we're not even halfway to playing all the Panzer Corps content.
That's true. So don't
by
worry.
the time this releases stuff, there's probably no way we can play this faster than it releases. So yeah, we'll play this all the way into retirement.
And don't worry, this won't replace Panzer Corps 1, at least on my channel. It will be both.
Either, yeah.
And
because I definitely want to play all the campaigns of Panzer Corps before I put that away, and I'm not even close to having achieved that. So yeah, that I will keep playing that, and we will be able to compare that, and maybe there's actually going to be something that happens with Panzer Corps 1. Maybe they open it up to modification once this one comes out, maybe make it more moddable, or maybe even give us the source code or whatever. So we may even see new stuff arriving in Panzer Corps 1. Who knows?
Yeah, then we can finally make the ultimate Panzer Corps.
Yeah. Introduce all the features that this one has and the other one, and we have the proper graphics and the cool features. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Order of Battle, I'm not sure. I've tried it. Maxime, I can't read.
I think it is.
Yeah, Maxime, but the rest I can't read. I can't read Cyrillic, but which I think this is, or maybe it's Greek. I'm not sure. The Order of Battle, I tried to play that. Honestly, the I don't know, certain mechanics I didn't like so much. The animation, the AI turn calculations took way too long, and I don't know, the replay, and I don't think there was a replay feature that made it very awkward to use for videos back in the day, because the scenarios just took too long. There's certain things in it that I liked, like the secondary objectives, the naval combat. There's certainly things that I liked in them, but yeah, I'm not sure. Order of Battle had some issues that annoyed me a little bit. Mostly the performance was horrible. What about you, Brock? Why did you never get into Order of Battle?
I actually don't know. I've watched a few videos, and it definitely, there is something about it that doesn't appeal to me. I can't even point a finger to it.
Yeah, what really turned me,
wanted to play it. That's all.
Yeah, I have it. I don't have all the DLC, but I have the base game. And what really turned me off is that I have no idea how the vision works. I move forward and I see some stuff, and I have never any idea on how does line of sight work in this game. How far does my unit see? Somehow there's no information on that, and I don't like games of this type where certain game mechanics are black boxes, and I don't understand how they work. I need to be able to understand all the rules, and that needs to be visible on the screen, why certain things happen the way they happen. And in Order of Battle, certain mechanics were just not explained. It just works that way. And I'm sorry, I need to know what my unit can see if I move to a certain hex. That I didn't like so much. Maybe they fixed that in the meantime. I don't know. I know they released tons of DLCs by now, but I liked it. Maybe I will give it another try at some point. I'm sure they fixed most of the performance issues by now. Initially, it had its issue. Maybe they even have a replay feature by now. I don't know. I didn't follow it anymore. But maybe I will play it again. I think there was a DLC representing the Winter War. I don't think there's a whole lot of games of this type at the moment that properly represent the Winter War as a fully playable campaign. I know there's a mod for Panzer Corps, but not a really normal designed campaign. So I might give that a try. But yeah, maybe for making an historical video and discuss the Winter War. But yeah, right now there's still a lot of Panzer Corps coming up. I might even start playing Hato Errand 4. There's a new U-boat game that I supported on Patreon, and not on Patreon, on Kickstarter, I think on Steam, that I'm going to feature. So I have too much on my channel to introduce another game like that, maybe in the future.
So, yeah, I think we will finish the video now.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to it. Both of us. That's probably the the summary of this video. We don't know when it's gonna come out. I don't think they have given us an official release date yet. They just said it's gonna be someday this year. Considering they currently are running the beta, from personal experience and how that usually goes, I'd say expect it sometime in late summer, early fall, maybe. Maybe they're going for a Christmas release, but I'm not sure about that. That's still a little bit far away. Might make sense for marketing, but I'm not sure this is the kind of game that wants to compete with the kind of AAA games that coming out on Christmas. I think they're actually better off if they release it before that. So I would expect it sometime in late summer. I'm not sure. Maybe August, September, something like that. What do you think?
I have no idea.
Usually beta test goes a couple of months. I'm not sure they're going to drag it out all the way to Christmas.
No, I don't expect that either. Yeah, so thanks for joining me on the channel. Thanks for participating in the chat. And yeah, I think in 2 hours, Lieutenant Joker is going for Streets of Moscow. So you can join him on his channel. And until then, as always, have a nice time and see you next time.
Bye.